And we're back with a part two. I am here with my friend Josh Rose, our
Hello,
resident Pathfinder expert. And I
nerd.
am I am a huge D&D fan, and the recent events of D&D with their OGL, with the sort of subscription model, the price hikes with D&D Beyond, everything that D&D has been doing wrong lately, it has had me looking elsewhere. So I used to pick on Pathfinder because why would you play Pathfinder when you have D&D? But I
Right.
think that while I do think that D&D is always going to be, I can't imagine them not being the market leader. I just, it is, you almost have to separate D&D the game from D&D sort of the phenomenon.
The brand,
Yeah,
right? It's like Xerox or Kleenex.
yeah.
When people talk about
We're going to play
TTRPGs,
D&D.
we're
Well,
gonna
which
play
D&D?
D&D, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which D&D are we playing? Well, let's play Pathfinder this time. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna drink a Coke. What kind of Coke? Root beer.
Yeah.
So
And so I feel like they're always going to be the market leader, but I think that with all of these new things that have happened, certain things that were not viewed as alternatives are now being seen with kind of a second, like, oh, maybe this is an option. And even I heard people talking about what would happen if Critical Role, Cobalt Press, Matt Colville, what if like all the big, Dimension 20, what if they all got together and just created their own system that was sort of um, live play, actual play friendly, so it works
right.
well for YouTube, and it's not owned by a company. And I heard some really sincere conversations about that being a possibility, that yeah, they don't need to play D&D for us to enjoy it. And then even talking about what that would look like, that to me is a fascinating conversation, because I think we've gotten to a point where Critical Role is bigger than D&D.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they could switch systems and
They
honestly,
would
how
not lose
much
a single person.
right, like how much, because people go to Critical Role, and I'll confess I've only watched maybe a little bit of Vox Machina. Like I haven't really watched a lot of the actual plays, but
Yeah.
people go to them for them, right? They
Yeah.
go to them for their characters, they go to them for their performances. Nobody goes to them because it's D&D 5e specific. I mean, it could be anything. Yeah, and it's funny. I know in the aftermath of all this with the OGL leak, so Cobalt Press announced they were developing their own bespoke game
They're
that
calling it
they're
codename Black
Black
Flag.
Black Flag, which
Yeah.
seems very apropos. And then perhaps the strongest thing was because so there was very real fear in the Pathfinder world. And that was, Pathfinder even 2E, which is quite honestly very much a custom system, still uses the OGL. It's here
Yeah.
in the back of my copy, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there
I
was
feel like
real
that OGL is a CYA. It's a cover your ass
I
OGL.
totally agree. Totally
Yeah.
agree. Now in Pathfinder First Edition, it was really essential because Pathfinder First Edition was basically a fork of D&D 3.5,
Mhm.
right? It Paizo created Pathfinder 1E when WotC announced they were doing fourth edition.
Mhm.
And they had already developed this world and were known, they being Paizo, were known for their adventure paths. They already had all the mechanics built in. So they were like, well, we don't want to sign on to this fourth edition system. We're already doing a lot. So why don't we just release our own game? And apparently, I'm still pretty new to Pathfinder. There was a period where Pathfinder 1E was outselling fourth edition D&D.
Yeah.
And I do kind of wonder if Pathfinder set themselves up to do the same thing in the near future with 2E versus 5E, considering how badly this OGL rollout has gone. That said, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I will jump in and say I was
Yeah,
interested to
please.
hop on Amazon to see what the rankings were on the books. And it was weird because it's very hard to find rankings for D&D books because D&D has its own
Really?
it's hard for some reason because D&D has
Huh.
its own category.
Okay.
So I'm not able to really see, and maybe someone else can find it. I wasn't really able to see where Pathfinder 2E was ranking against the player's handbook, for instance, the
That
5e.
is that is really fascinating.
And I don't know if that's intentional or not, probably not, but it is one of those things where I'm wanting to check, like, okay, in January, how did Pathfinder 2E do against 5e just with rankings? But it's
Right.
very hard to find that information. So actually, as we're talking, I'm gonna go on Amazon and see if I can find where Pathfinder is ranking right now, see if we
Okay.
can figure this out.
I mean, I will say anecdotally, I know, and I'm kind of stealing off the top of my head from what I've heard from Ian World on their podcast. When Roll20 releases their stats, almost always 5e is the juggernaut of usage in games run on Roll20. Typically, the second and third slots tend to be a fight between Call of Cthulhu and Pathfinder.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it says Pathfinder 1E or 2E. It says Pathfinder. Again, I could be wrong. I could probably look this up on Ian World's site, but I'm lazy. I've listened to their podcast for so long when they tend to bring up the Roll20 stats that they release, I think quarterly. It's almost always just like 5e is like this huge percentage of usage on that site, which is also interesting because one of the other, that's where my brain was going. I just remembered one of the other results of the OGL debacle was not only did Kobold Press announce their Black Flag system, Paizo came out and announced their own, and they stress this strongly.
Yeah.
Irrevocable license called the ORC, or the ORC.
Yeah.
Which stands for the Open RPG Creative License.
Which I remember them doing that, and I was like, "Oh, okay, you guys you're coming to play."
And I want to tell you two things about the orc that I love. One is, so currently they have nearly 1,500 people. Some sites report is signed on. I believe it's just have expressed interest in the orc, so that's a little different, but that's still an enormous percentage. And of those 1,500, you have big people like Kobold Press. So Kobold Press ostensibly is going to release their Black Flag stuff under the orc, not the OGL.
Okay.
Roll20 has signed on, and I think that may be them seeing the writing on the wall with 5e, because if you look at Beyond, it's very clear that WotC wants to turn that into a VTT, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
they want
they want you playing it there, not on some third-party site.
which I
If you're
think
going to play
around
online.
which I think around the time of COVID, that was probably when they really had kind of a reevaluate their priorities moment,
That's a
because
good point.
everyone obviously went online to play
Yep.
D&D, and they're
Yep.
like, why are we giving all this money away to Roll20 and to other, VRTs when we should be doing this? Why aren't we
Yep.
why aren't we doing this stuff?
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, the answer is I mean, there's just better options out there right now. But I think that was a moment where they were a little bit scared. So yeah, if I was Roll20, I don't know why I would play nice with them, because you know that they're not going to try to yeah,
try to help. Yeah, it's an interesting space. And I will say, just from a Pathfinder 2 perspective, the really good VTT for Pathfinder 2 is Foundry. And thankfully, in the past year, Paizo's come out. They had apparently one person on staff who was like the advocate at every meeting saying, we've got to get in on this Foundry thing because it is so good. There is a community of developers building the module out for the Pathfinder 2e system in Foundry. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. It works great. It is stunning. And yes, you can play Pathfinder 2 on Roll20. You can play Pathfinder 2 on um Fantasy Grounds.
Yeah.
But its implementation into Foundry is so elegant and good. And thankfully now they've started releasing official content for it. So what's really nice is you can buy, the beginner box or an entire adventure path for Foundry VTT. Everything comes. I mean, everything. All the maps are prepped with walls and lighting. All the content is there. And again, because of the Paizo Connect link, if I own it as a PDF, I can buy the Foundry module for typically $14 and get that entire book in Foundry ready to run. And I run a lot of stuff online because it's the easiest way for me to do it. So having it all there, it means it's very turnkey. As long as I've read the literal book that I own, I can go in and I don't have to set up maps or anything. All the creatures are there. Everything is there. It's really, really nice.
Yeah. Oh, and I was going to say, I looked on Amazon. Yep. It is very hard to find the Pathfinder, at least for the core book. And it may be because they've been sold out. And so maybe they're not able to find all that stuff, but it was hard to find that information.
That's interesting.
Who knows? I'm sure somebody has it and somebody will report on it. At the end of the day, I don't think D&D is going to take the hit like to their bottom line that we think they're going to take. I think the movie's going to do well. I think people are still going to buy D&D books. People are still going to play D&D. But for the hardcore D&D players, I think that the goodwill and the trust that they've built up is gone. And I think that you're going to find an increasingly antagonistic relationship between the community and the people creating the content. I mean, I saw it even when I was with Adventures League.
Yeah.
I was, I don't know if you remember this, but my little character, Terry Tanner, started a war.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It was a hugely popular / controversial community initiative called the Red War that's centered around the Red Wizards, which, by the way, the movie is about the Red Wizards too. So,
that's right. I hadn't even put that together. That's right. Yeah.
I was like,
sorry,
hey,
go ahead.
The Red War. they made a movie about
they stole my IP. God damn it.
Which is why Terry Tanner is the reason why they did the OGL 2.0. It's
of
my
course,
fault.
Absolutely. It is, David. And you should really take I can't say credit.
But here's the thing. It really was a community initiative because what I did was kind of just put forward this basic idea, which is we have these factions in D&D. We should like declare war on the Red Wizards. Like, let's just go. Let's just take them out. And let's just all as a community say we're going to do this. And let's just see what happens. And so people were running with it and kind of role-playing. But here was two things that I took away from that experience. There were a few things, but I'll share two. The first thing was, even though they knew that I was the one who had kind of started this thing, there was very little transparency between me and the people at D&D. Like I had no idea what they were doing. They never talked to me. They never asked my opinion. They never were like, hey, this thing, it's kind of taking off. Here's what we have in mind. None of that. The other thing that I noticed was that it felt like, and this is just my own conjecture, it felt like they viewed it as a problem they had to deal with rather than an opportunity that they could expand upon. Like there's all this huge community thing that's really popular. And they did do some stuff with the Dreams of the Red Wizards and they did some stuff, but you could tell early on, it was very much sort of this begrudging, like, this was not our plan. This is not what we had in mind. And once again, all conjecture. I'm fine. Like my character's doing well. I have no problems with it. But I did notice that their reactions at times felt just weird. It felt off. And that I think is going to be the feeling that more players are going to get, where there's this sort of antagonism between the community and the company, where it's like there's not transparency, and and anything the community puts forward is going to be viewed as something that's messing them up with something they already had in mind. We were going to do this thing, and now you're getting in the way. You should be happy that we're even allowing you to be in our presence. And I mean, I just find that, and this was true with the Adventures League in general, is the people who were part of Adventures League worked so hard, and I felt like they were not given the respect that they deserve for the number of hours they contributed to that community. And that's unfortunate. Now, Pathfinder has organized play as well, correct?
Yep, it does. And actually, if you want, I'll share my screen.
Yes, please do.
Oh, it's still disabled. Sorry. I think because we restarted.
Let me hold on. I can do this quickly.
I will tap dance while you do that.
All right, you should be good now.
Okay. Yes, so they do have an organized play. Let me actually switch over to, so here it is. It's called Pathfinder Society. Okay. And I would say I'm still pretty new to it. So as you know, because the friendly local game store we both go to, Common Ground Games, is really, really great. But it's been very 5e focused, I think, for many years. And so on the Discord, I'd say maybe 6 months ago, I started proposing, would you guys be interested in running some Pathfinder Society stuff? So we're slowly getting it up and running. So I'm running a Pathfinder 2 Society game there this Sunday. And just trying to get it kind of like up and running, right? Pathfinder Society, like Adventures League, it's organized play. It tends to have these seasons. So they're currently in season 4 of 2E. I said 2 years ago, it's been 4 years. Good God. So it's called The Year of Boundless Wonder. And they do a pretty good job of offering, and again, AL does this, of offering Pathfinder Society scenarios that are for different levels. Some are standalone, some are tied into what they call sort of a meta plot. So it ties into kind of everything happening over the course of the season. And I will also say, and again, I think this is kind of smart of them. One of the things I kind of dislike about Pathfinder Society is, it was either 4 years ago or 3 years ago, they decided they're not going to do just a PDF anymore of all the organized play rules. They were going to partner with this site and put all the rules up there. That site is very difficult to navigate. It's not easy to figure out. And I know they've been saying this for at least a year to a year and a half, that they are trying to streamline it. Maybe they're going to go back to a PDF or something. It's very fractured at the moment. And one of the other things they do is, you can, for instance, anything in the core rulebook you can use to make your Pathfinder Society character. Things that are in the special books, like say the Lost Omen stuff, may or may not be. You may have to like earn enough credits to be able to pay for them. One of those things was orcs, actually. The orc ancestry was something that you had to basically pay to use in Pathfinder Society. When they released the orc license, he said, oh, they did a blog post, by the way, orcs are completely free to use now in organized play, which is such a minor thing. But again, it speaks to the community. The community immediately got like, you guys rock. Like I could go make my orc character and play in organized play now. So anyway, it's everything on this page is here. It's just paizo.com/Pathfinder Society. You've got your factions, which are the different, again, just like an AL, the different.
I was going to say the Verdant Wield sounds like the Emerald Enclave to me. Those are my people.
I'm I'm trying to remember exactly what the verdant wheel does.
Oh yeah, this is totally my people. I can tell.
Okay, there you go. There you go. See, I'm always Grand Archive because I'm a big history nerd that likes to take notes.
Yeah.
Um, but if you go here, you can also get like the various character options. The thing I do really like, and I don't know if AL does this, is you can track all your information on Paizo's site.
No.
So when I, oh really? Okay,
There
here you
are
can
sites where
actually
you
do it.
can do it, but not through the main D&D
Oh,
site.
you can totally do it here. So if I click on my organized play, it will take you to, oh, I gotta log in. Hang on. All right.
I
It will
won't look
take
at
you
your
to,
password. Okay,
it's
there you
all
go.
right. I already clicked through it. So here's my current faction. Here are my Pathfinder. Look, I have a Pathfinder Society 1 character. I got two E
Ooh,
characters. But so here are all the sessions I've played. If I click on the sessions tab, it keeps track of all this.
that's
And
fun.
as a GM, these are all of the sessions I've run right
Okay.
here, and it gives you all the like session sheets and stuff to take in with you, and you record it report it online as well. So as a GM, it's quite nice. Again, still a little clunky, but it works.
Better than nothing.
It is, right.
Yeah.
And so they've been working and trying to get all this stuff back up and going, or not going, but smoothed out over the
Yeah.
past few years ago or so. um it's really great. I like it. And the one conceit of Pathfinder Society, which I think is a little tighter than AL, is with Pathfinder Society, you're playing a member of the Pathfinder Society. So within the world of Galarian, the Pathfinder Society is the group committed to exploring and reporting what they find. They're basically the Indiana Joneses of
Yeah.
Galarian. And but what they do is with the various factions, which I think they do also in AL, they use that to create a little bit of like Games of Thrones, like infighting,
Mhm.
politicking, those sorts of things. Anyway, it's quite fun. Now, do you have to play Pathfinder Society or organized play? Absolutely not. You can, so for instance, with all the various adventure paths they put out, every adventure path tends to have a different kind of theme around it. So for instance, one that just came out, you're all playing basically people associated with the undead.
Mhm.
In the new one that came out, it's very much a kind of multiversal sort of adventure. One that I've been fun to kind of run, but there's a trick with it. Agents of Edgewatch, you're all playing basically cops in the biggest city in Galarian. So it's like every adventure kind of has its own theme, its own kind of sense to it. And that makes it really fun. If your players are all like, we all want to be circus performers, I know there is an official book from WotC that does that, but this really taps into it. It is like,
Yeah.
you are all literally circus performers. You run a circus, you are fighting with another circus, and there's a whole B plot that becomes the A plot. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, let me stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, very cool.
There we go. Yeah.
Well, and so let me ask you this, like, do you play mostly online? Do you play mostly in person? Kind of what's your playing experience been?
So I have overwhelmingly played online.
Mhm.
And so part of that was you got me back into playing. We were playing in person. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I found it really hard to get to a game store to
Yeah.
play like every week. And so what happened was I found a group that actually was around Cobalt Press's Midgard setting
Mhm.
that I have you ever read that setting? It's
I'm
one of my
familiar with it. I
favorite
haven't read it.
settings in the world.
Yeah.
It's an amazing setting. It is so compelling. It's one of those things, and I would say your setting does this too, where when you read a setting book and as you're reading it, you keep stopping because you have ideas that you want to run in that setting.
Yeah.
I love that. And the Midgard setting does that really well. So I was really interested in it, but I didn't know where to go to play it. And I found a group online that was only focused on it, and just they kind
Out
of
of
became my
curiosity,
yeah,
Facebook, Discord, where'd you find it?
Discord.
Okay.
Well, it had a website as a landing page, but that landing page linked to a Discord.
Okay. Yeah, just curious as to where you
And
got to it. It's Discord. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a great question. And so I started playing with them. It's a really great group. I'm still on there. Like, they're no longer affiliated with the Midgard group. They just started their own, and we just, we do stuff on there. Um, they got me to a point where I was like, I want to run a game, and I'd never GM before. So I kind of took the leap and did it and really enjoyed it. And so now I kind of divide my time between GMing and playing. I'd say it's pretty 50-50. I run 2 campaigns on Wednesday night that are both Pathfinder 2e.
Yeah.
And I kind of flip those. And then on Fridays, I flip between playing in 2 different campaigns. So pretty even.
Yeah.
All Pathfinder 2e. All of those are online. And then when we started up the Pathfinder Society at Common Ground, I'm doing that in person. And that's been super fun because I hadn't had that experience since playing with you, like really just playing in person. So I go out there and do that in person as well. But it's like, what, 80% virtual, 20% in person. So
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's probably for me like 100% virtual over since COVID. Like I just
yeah.
haven't had a chance to go to the store, and I miss it. Like it's one of those things where since I've been working on my novel, like that has sucked up so much of my
Right.
time
Yeah.
that I just haven't had time to play. And the other thing I've found is I think that D&D as a system can be very taxing as a DM. I think that being
Interesting.
a DM in the 5e system it's just a lot. And so I will run a summer campaign online that's set in
Mhm.
Efreuzul, and we're in our whole, like, it's a parallel dimension from where the book is. Like it's its own thing. And
Now that's
and I enjoy it.
fascinating, but
I mean, because there are some characters that exist in the novel, but they've already just like plowed through them. Like, like, all right, we're not going to keep this character around for dramatic effect. We're just going to kill them all off, which is a very D&D thing to do. It's like, but this
right,
character
right.
is a great bad guy. Kill him. Like, okay, well, now we don't get the fun of a perpetual villain that shows up from time to time. Like, imagine if Reed Richards just like offed Doctor Doom after issue 5.
Oh,
You're like,
oh my God.
yep, now we're done.
Yep, yep. I have to invent the Doctor Doom's advisor.
Yeah, yeah.
The next level up.
Got to
So
get a new guy in there. And but I did find that yeah, I miss playing in person. I miss playing online. I just, one thing that I've heard about Pathfinder is that it seems like it is easier for the GM to run a game versus the D&D thing, where I feel like as a D&D DM, you are juggling about 20 different things. It is very
yeah.
taxing, and I can do it for a few months and then I'm wiped out. I don't know how people do it for like years and years. I have to take breaks.
That is fascinating. I've never GM'd 5e.
Yeah.
And I may not be the best example of even a Pathfinder 2e GM because I'm very hand wavy. Like, I
Yeah.
want to keep the
You have to be.
momentum going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, so if this thing is gonna hold stuff up, I'm gonna find a way to circumvent around the rules to keep it going, right? Um, so I may not be the best example, but I find at least that I am much more, and you know this very well. I'm a big dum dum. So the faster I can process rules in my head, the better.
Mhm.
And just being able to very easily calculate DCs or understand the action economy or something and just keep things moving along is really, really helpful for me.
Yeah.
I'll get caught up in minutia every now and then, like, various types of like environment or things like that. But even then, I try to keep it moving. And I think Pathfinder 2, it can be very crunchy. I mean, I know people have looked at it, even coming from 5e, and saying like there's just a lot here. But in the start of the book, even they say, look, everything here is take it or leave it, right? If you don't want to use the various environment conditions in your game, then don't do it. But one thing I do like about Pathfinder is I'm not good at the role playing aspect of role playing games. I'm not good at voices. You've seen me as a player. I'm not even very good at like playing my character. I'll describe what they do versus being them. And one thing I appreciate about Pathfinder is it has different types of encounters. So an encounter is not always just combat. They also have social encounters, which is like you're just trying to convince someone to do something. And that can that can really it can put front and center those players that are very good at role playing because it allows them to shine. You know, they're like, I'm going to use tone or words or actions to be able to really convince this person, and you can use that to augment their roles. I mean, it's really, really elegant. It's a great system, and I find as a GM it's quite nice. Again, I may not be the best exemplar of that because I am very hand wavy. I'm like, let's just keep this moving along, that kind of thing. So
well, and this is one thing I am interested, because once again, I mean, D&D kind of shot itself in the foot. So now I'm thinking about Pathfinder. I am interested in the combat mechanics of Pathfinder. I'm going to look into it a little bit more because I do think, having played D&D 5e quite a bit, I will say that combat is where role-playing goes to die. Because what happens is it's like you get all these interactions and people are interacting, talking, but once the fight starts, it becomes hit, all right, your turn, miss, hit, miss, 20 damage, next, miss, you know, and it just like for the next hour. And you're just like, oh, good Lord. And I realize good DMs could explain each attack, but it's oftentimes the DM who's really doing it. And sometimes the player will be like, I want to do this and this, but it's all, at a certain point, it's all window dressing, because we know that it's like just the mechanics themselves kind of kill. So I think that we need something crunchier in the combat situation, where there are options like I use my whirling blades maneuver, and I know we have a little bit of that in D&D 5e, but I think you need more options within the combat encounter to really give players something to do. And I don't know, some D&D players may disagree, but that's what I see.
I find that interesting because I can definitely see that as both possible in Pathfinder 2e, but also maybe a hindrance. I have overwhelmingly found combat in 2e to be pretty smooth. I've also seen it get bogged down, but that's fairly rare. Now, where it's smooth, and I think this goes back to your point about Pathfinder 2e coming out after 5e, is the fact that, so for instance, their version of the Paladin is the champion. And the champion by default is not what we expect of a paladin in 5e. The champion in 2e is a team booster. It is very much like I am going to use this feat or this ability to boost the capability of the rest of the team. And in addition, a lot of the other classes are there in such a way that you think about. So in 2e, a lot of characters have what are called reactions, and reactions are triggered by something. It could be a combat thing, it could be even like a social encounter thing, a skill check, but those are their version of attack of opportunities. So it's not just you move, I attack. It's you did this thing and I'm doing this thing, and the flavor of that's very different. The other thing that I think 2e does well is it does keep players on their toe. Now, what I have found is, both as a player and a GM, more so as a player, I get stuck in a rut, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, I do the same thing over and over again. You can say the same about 5e. I think that you're like, I cast this again, this cantrip again and again. I think with 2e, one of the things it does that's quite nice is every time you level up, you're really kind of reconsidering what your character can do.
Mm.
And that can change the flavor of how you act. The other thing, and I stress this a lot as a GM of 2e, the way that 2e is structured, you do not have to have a cleric. Medicine is a skill.
Yeah.
Anybody can learn it. And so as long as you have a character of any class that knows medicine, you don't have to have a cleric. And so I tell people all the time, especially players that come into my games who have been playing a long time, like, okay, well, what's the party makeup? What do I have to play? I'm like, I don't care. Play whatever you want, right?
Yeah. I have found that the best D&D campaigns I've ever run have been the most imbalanced.
Yes.
Right. I ran a game once. I was in a game once where it was all level 20 wizards.
Oh my
one from
God.
each school of magic. And it was awesome. It was so
That sounds incredible. That sounds amazing.
Insane. I worked very hard to make that one happen. But yeah,
I bet that sounds incredible.
Insane because I saw some wizards that were doing stuff with their spells that I had never even thought of, and it was just like,
wow,
this is so cool.
Well, I do want to make one last plug, if I
yes,
might.
Please do.
And that is, if you're interested in getting into Pathfinder, the Pathfinder beginner box,
okay,
puts every single 5e starter set to shame because it is chock full of material. It comes with a dry erase 2-sided map that you can use in perpetuity. It comes with a cardboard standees for all the creatures. I mean, it's a solid set. The great thing about this is the way that the adventure in it is designed. It literally walks players through all the mechanics of the system, but it does it in a very organic way. So it doesn't feel like a standard tutorial of like a video game where you're like, oh, I got to go kill these rats, right? This is very much like you're going through the adventure, but you're learning how to do everything the system can do built in. So it's a really great way to start.
Well, I'm gonna have to wrap this up, but I will make you a promise. I'm working on the novel, but sometime this year I'm gonna find a time to play with you, and I'm gonna play some Pathfinder this year.
Nice.
I'm gonna try it out.
Love that. Would love that, and I'm happy to run it online if you want to do it that way. If you,
I'll be like a guest star. I'll come in and then I'll die the same game. Be like, hey, who's Jeff? And then Jeff came in and then he died, and he's like, all right.
Hey, I will say if people in your community Discord want to be the players in a game that you want to organize, I'm happy to run it. I'm more than happy to do it. So awesome. You guys can all like kick the tires and test it out. So
that would be great. Well, thank you so much.
No problem.
And yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to end the interview right